Welcome to Inside Plug, the podcast where independent creators and entrepreneurs connect and inspire. I'm your host, Devon Jones. Today on our show, we have writer, producer, and director Paul Day. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here, Paul. You're a jack of many hats, and we love filmmakers that can pretty much do it all. But before we dive into those things that you can do, we like to bring the audience back from the beginning, kind of like where it all started. So Paul, if you can share, how did your journey begin?
So it was a family business. It started with my dad, who's was sort of a local celebrity. I should sort of give some backstory. I'm Canadian, so I'm in Calgary, and my dad had a show called The Movie Show, which was in Canada, and then from there, kind of started a production company, and then kind of got into the family business that way. Um, and started as a PA and then sort of worked my way up as sort of a junior writer producer and then eventually to senior writer producer. And it was lucky enough that it gave a lot of opportunity to do various different projects.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. All right. So Paul, just curious with that producer experience that you have, could you share with us, how was that feeling going from, junior to the senior producer? And like if can you share some of the projects that you were a part of?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the projects I started on, even as a junior producer, then I was sort of helping other people write scripts, and it was for a TV show on Super Channel. Super Channel was it was sort of the pre-Netflix. Uh, it's still around, but it was sort of pre streaming service. There would be like it was sort of Canadians HBO, and it would just play movies all day long. And so they had a show called The Next Take, and that was the first show that I worked on. And it basically was kind of a commercial slash TV show that would sort of tell you sort of in depth, interesting facts about the movies that were playing on Super Channel. So little trivial trivia tidbits and stuff like that. And it would have interviews of the stars in those movies. And I started as an associate producer on that, and then eventually started getting credit as a senior producer on that show. And from there, I started working on another show called Hollywood's 10 Best, which was sort of on the production company streaming service, which was fun and very similar. They called that like an entertainment show, similar to The Next Take, which is like about celebrities, very celebrity focused. Kind of back when, it was like 10 years ago. So at this period in time, movie stars were sort of the thing that was the most famous. I think that's sort of shifted recently, but that's sort of what those shows focuses were on. And then eventually moved on to crime shows, and the crime shows that I worked on was one called The Shocking Truth, which played on Much Music, and I think it's on Crave now. It was for a little while, and it's basically when you see a movie, oftentimes you'll see a trailer for like a movie about a ghost or something, and it'll say based on a true story, and it's kind of like what? It has a ghost in it, but it's based on a true story, and so yeah, so basically it would really tell you the true story. Uh, that happened and how the movie's based on some type of reality. And so that was awesome. It was a lot of work because we kind of had to do a bit of everything. We had to schedule all the interviews, we had to do all the writing. So that was quite a lot of work, but it was a ton of fun, and learned a lot from getting to do that show. And then eventually did a show called Sex, Lies, and Murder, which is about exactly what it sounds like. Uh, it's a crime show about sex, lies, and murder, and it was on a network in the States. Well, I don't know if you've heard of it. Reels, Reelz, Reels. No,
Does ring a
yeah.
bell.
They do a lot of crime stuff. They do a lot of like true story stuff, and they were awesome. They were awesome to work with, and yeah, so did that show for a little bit, and then sort of moved on more to as of recently the documentary space, and feeling very fortunate to get to do that.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. All right. So before we jump into that current project that you're working on, let's talk about you as a writer. We dabbled into the producer part. Now, when did the writing journey become the starting for you? When did you start writing?
So that's a great question. That was always the goal, actually. Is that television writing was always something that I was fascinated with. And it sort of started simultaneously with the producing. I almost think the producing, like a lot of people, the producing is almost what you do to actually do what you want to do in show business. A lot of times someone will want to be an actor or director, and just out of just when you're working with a smaller budget production, you're gonna have to do some producing as well. And that was definitely the case with me. I was interested in writing, and I wrote for all those shows mentioned, but because of the size of the production company, and because we're just a small production company in Canada, we had to do a fair amount of producing as well. But the writing is really where the passion was. The more creative, obviously fun stuff is what attracted me to the business.
Awesome. Could you share some of those early screenplays?
Yeah, so it's funny, like I think like there's this term non-scripted content when people are talking about like docuseries and documentaries, but for everything that I wrote, every crime show, there was a script. So the first things I started writing were like the next take, or then 100% best. But the one where I think I started to really learn and sort of figure out how to put together a story, um, was really The Shocking Truth. That's when I think I really sort of figured out, how to bridge everything, how to make things really pop as a story. And yeah, I just remember that, and just how exciting that was, how crazy it was, and yeah, I loved it.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, I have a question. Who or what inspires you?
Who inspires me? That's a really good question, actually. All production really inspires me. Like I think like when before you start, and I don't know if this is your experience as well, you're almost more cynical. You're almost like you think in terms of what was everything wrong with that movie, or this is a very common thing that I see with Gen Z and even millennials too, is what was unrealistic about that movie.
Mhm.
I think once you start working on projects, especially with other people, you start to realize how hard it is to make something even reasonably good. And I think it makes you have a far bigger appreciation for all movies and all TV shows. It's funny enough. Like something that you would have maybe not necessarily appreciated before starting, you start realizing that because it's not even just that something has to be good. It's that everybody has to be on the same page and understand like what the overall vision is. And so it's weird. You start getting inspired by everything.
I love it.
Yeah. I would say 30 for 30 though, like which is I know that's a sports documentary. I've never really dove too deep into that, but I found that in terms of putting together a story, more than anything else in terms of because I work on docuseries, that really inspired me and kind of really taught me how to sort of put a story together. Uh, yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, Paul. So now let's jump into this other skill set you have as a director. Now, being a director is difficult for a lot of people. Not a lot of people are cut out to be a director. But what
Yeah.
made you say, okay, I want to be a director?
So opposed to having bigger credits with directing and writing, my experience with directing has been primarily like commercials and corporate videos and so forth. And I'd say unexpectedly, I loved it, and I felt a lot more comfortable with it than I would. I think the main thing about directing is just understanding. Yes, you are the captain of the ship, but it's really understanding that the team you have, and having people around you that you feel comfortable and confident with, not only that they can do their tasks, but also that you can communicate with them effectively. It's like it's a very much like a company you keep job. Like I think like there's a lot of big shows and a lot of big movies where the director is often the least technically sound person on set. I think a lot of people that work on a film set almost sort of resent the director for that because everybody else like is a little bit more technical. Like there's obviously like there's the master directors, but I'm just talking about oftentimes it'll be like the writer will end up directing it, and they'll by far know the least amount technically on set. And the thing about it is it's being comfortable with your team and prep. I feel like more than any other thing, it's prep and planning everything to a T before it happens. Like so ideally, you almost want it to look like no one's almost asking you a question because they're so comfortable in what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. I love it. All right, Paul. So now let's talk to this current project that or this recent project that you worked on. It's titled Lone Eagle. So how did the concept come about and how was the experience working on the project?
So it was actually Marty Wildman's vision. So a company that I work for, based in Calgary, started by Holly Fortier. Holly Fortier is Métis, and she loves to tell First Nation stories. That's what Two Canoes really based around, and people should check out lots of her work if they can online. Two Canoes, and it's really beautiful. Like her whole thing is like she wants to tell inspirational stories about First Nations people, uh, and not sugarcoating anything, but just things that inspire other First Nations people to accomplish things. And so there was a guy named Marty Wildman who's somewhat of a local like, well, I would say beyond a local celebrity. He's really known in Canada, and he was very much a pioneer on First Nations involvement in film and TV because he was in the game so early. He was on a show called 660, and he started as a stuntman and sort of became a character in this show. And he hired us to tell his story, and he very much had a vision in mind for his story. Uh, and um, yeah, sorry, someone's just coming. Yeah, so his story basically was sort of changing how First Nations are used in Canada. Like from the start of the story, we see that it's literally like red face. Like people would hire white actors, paint them red. They might be Italian, they might be anything, and they would play the First Nations people, as offensive as that is. And you have these guys like Marty who came into the industry and really changed that. They really gave First Nations people a voice, behind the scenes and on camera. So telling his story was honestly an honor. Getting to write it and be a co-producer on it was honestly, yeah, a total honor.
I love it. I love it. All right. So Paul, so out of writing, producing, directing, working on his current project, Lone Eagle, what would you say has been some of the obstacles that you had to face?
Some of the obstacles that I had to fix, some of the obstacles when working on the project.
Overall, like, through your journey up until now, what's some obstacles that you've overcame?
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. I don't think it's easy for anybody. And I think that's something that you kind of got to realize is you see something like you see TV and you see movies and like celebrities and directors, writers, and when you look at them or become a fan of theirs, they're quite established. So they almost are making it look easy because you're seeing the best situation. It's kind of like that saying, never compare your behind the scenes to someone's finished product. And that's true. The success in any industry obviously is going to be resilience. So there's so much disappointment. There's so much no. There's so much you know, even in a family business, you got to fight for a lot of things that you want. And I think, yeah, I would say some of the biggest obstacles specifically. Let's try to think about this. I think one's being in Canada, especially Calgary, not being in a market like Toronto. It's kind of hard to be taken seriously or you know, seen seriously, like in kind of a smaller city. I would say another obstacle is you're working with a bunch of other people who are interested in this kind of field. Oftentimes, they have their own vision and own ideas of where things should go. So even like, at least, you know, when starting, it's like, and before you have any experience, you really got to fight for you can't really fight, but you really have to kind of be in the back of the line and kind of go along with everything. And then once you get a little more, it's really shocking how much disagreement there is on such trivial things and
Mm.
how much push there is on such trivial things. Everybody just has such a strong opinion on these things. I think it's hard to build a client base, you know, uh, especially in a smaller market city. Um, what else is a real challenge? Those are real challenges. It's hard to keep it going. I think, like the industry's changed so drastically. I remember when I first started, and it was like very unusual to work in media in any capacity. And I think that within the last decade, it's kind of like, well, everyone works in media because someone could have a social media page that could have a massive following, and it could just be somebody who started it themselves. So that's a challenge. Then there's the challenges now, in current day with AI, which makes us all very competitive for space as well. So uh I think, if you look at it from a big perspective, it's just that the industry changes so drastically, so
Awesome.
regularly, and has changed so drastically.
Very true. Very true. All right. Paul, where can people find your work? Can they find your reels or portfolios?
Yeah, maybe I could send you a link or something of some of my stuff, but yeah, so I have a show. Sex Lives and Murder is on Crave. I know that, which is a streaming service in Canada. Lots of our stuff is on Reels. So Sex Lives and Murder. I don't know if The Shocking Truth is still playing on Reels, but I worked on that one. The Nevermore, The Raven Effect, that is on Amazon. That is on Amazon Prime in the States, so you should be able to find that. And then Lone Eagle, we're still trying to find a home for it. Right now, it's just kind of doing a festival run. So definitely look out for that. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of that, the festival, Lone Eagle was at a festival not too long ago, I believe. Film
Yeah, so it,
festival.
it premiered in the Edmonton Film Festival.
Oh, how was that experience?
It was good. It was exciting. A much bigger audience than I was expecting, and it was very exciting to see sort of a positive response to it. I think Marty deserves it. You know, I think he's done a lot for First Nations people in the film industry. So that's really my hope, is that he starts to get the credit and spotlight that he deserves.
Awesome. All right, Paul, we're at that part of the episode where I ask this question to all the guests. What is a book, a TV show, or a film that you recommend?
That's actually a good question. And I feel like this has to be something that kind of prepares you for the industry. And the thing is, I think about this type of stuff all the time. Oh, pardon me. Let me just. Oh, well, it's just audio anyway, right?
Yep.
Okay. So let's see. Uh, hmm. Um, that is a good question. I feel like I wish I had more time to think about this. Movie. It could be one of. It should be one of everything, or just one in general to.
It's totally up to you.
It's totally up to me. Okay. Totally up to me. Hmm.
It could even be like a film that you recommend somebody watch, a book. We have got for books. We got Save the Cat before,
Save the
story.
Cat, not to be cliche, is a pretty good book on writing. That one I think can teach you the technical aspects of writing. What I'm trying to think about is something that really shows you resilience and just that things do not always go well. Like, there's the new Saturday Live movie. What's that called? Saturday Night? Uh, a Saturday Night, maybe it is. I can't remember. Saturday Night or something like that. There's a Birdman, obviously. There's The Studio with Seth Rogen. I think it's good to see things where you kind of realize things don't always go smoothly. The reason is because I think early on in my career, would really blame myself a lot when things didn't go right because that's just the nature of the beast. And, there's so much panic that people aren't always, they're not always like super polite or something when something goes wrong. But in reality, I think you got to realize it is the nature of the beast. If things do go wrong, there is a lot of panic and it is very stressful. But the reality is, you just have to accept that when you're working with other people and when you have to rely on other people, things are going to go wrong sometimes. And I would say, watching those shows just to kind of realize that that's the case. Even something like The Bear, which is about a kitchen, but you sort of get the energy of how chaotic things can be and how much is outside of your control, especially as a producer, so that you don't take it too personally. Um, and that would be my biggest advice is don't take things so personally. Understand there's a lot outside your control, um, and just try your best at it so you don't go crazy. Because
Well,
yeah.
I love it. All right, everyone. That's been our episode of Inside Plug today. Paul, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Devon. I appreciate you having me. And if there's anything I can provide you with, let me know.
Awesome. Will do. All right, everyone. That's been our episode today. You know where to find us. We're here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all those podcast platforms. Check us out. And remember, stay inspired and keep creating. Inside Plug, signing out.